My name's Greg Baker. I lead a network of churches across the country, including the state of Iowa. We have a network of 11 states that are working with churches and government authorities with the purpose of connecting shepherds. Shepherds, you wonder. We like to connect the shepherds of God's church, the pastor, to the shepherds of government, which is historically the king. But today that's state representatives, Supreme Court judges, governors, a president, prime ministers. Well, the goal of these connections is we want to develop intentional relationships. A relationship where these shepherds build into each other as people. So at the end of the day, they're an ordinary person. They build into each other as fellow shepherds. And lastly, they come together to meet community needs. As we know, when needs come to our community, people turn to government and the church. And that's exactly what we're seeing here at the coronavirus. I'm glad to be joining Josh Hershberger here today. I work with churches in the state of Iowa, and Josh does the same exact work in the state of Indiana. It's wonderful to have Josh on. But Josh, we want to have a particular conversation today. We want to be talking about religious liberty and how that has been impacting this coronavirus. Josh has got unique credentials amongst our team. He's also an attorney, has done a lot of religious liberty work. So we're going to be doing multiple videos here that you'll be watching, that we try to answer some of the questions that we are hearing, not only from churches in our state, but churches all over the country. I'd like to welcome Josh on. Josh.
Great to be here, Greg, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to these things.
Josh, why don't you share a little bit about your biography, just why in the world I invited you to be the one to come on and talk about these things. Share a bit of your history and why I believe you're qualified to visit.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. And so I am a pastor as well as an attorney. I'm licensed in 3 states. I've litigated up to the 7th Circuit and done a lot of work with churches and ministries around the country. One of the things I believe God called me to do is to help defend religious liberty in our times. And so something I've been doing now for about a decade and have been answering questions about these issues during this crisis as well. So it's something I've been working on pretty thoroughly over the last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Josh. And I just love your heart for both the pastors and love your heart for government. I just feel you're going to bring us that balance that we need to have here, as we want to be lifting up both shepherds here today. So Josh, the question I'd like to tackle in this video, I think is the perfect one to start with, is do you believe the government is violating the First Amendment by asking churches to not hold services during this pandemic?
So this may be the lawyer-like answer that anyone watching might expect, but my answer is no and yes. So no, in the sense that I would say, first of all, and this is the basic premise I've given to churches, is that the government does not have the authority to close churches or to prevent religious worship. You don't see an asterisk by the First Amendment. However, under current case law, so under the laws interpreted by the Supreme Court, as long as government is making a generally applicable rule to protect people from something like a global pandemic, then it is not a direct assault against religious liberty. It's simply a society-wide, generally applicable rule. And we'll get into this a little more in another video, but the general analysis is, does the government have a compelling interest? And if you look at the legal dictionaries after this, I'm pretty sure next to compelling interest, towards the top, you'll see protecting people from a global pandemic. All right, so they have a very strong interest. There's certainly a question as whether some of these rules are narrowly tailored. But generally, I don't think there are government officials out there, at least most of them, in some evil lair beneath City Hall thinking, ooh, I'm going to use the global pandemic to punish people of faith. I think most of them are concerned about protecting people from this pandemic. So in that sense, generally applicable rules that apply to similar businesses or organizations and public assemblies, I would say that no, they're not violating the First Amendment. Then I would say yes, in the sense that you have seen some officials make rules against holding something like a drive-in service. You've seen this in Mississippi and also in Louisville, where government officials said you cannot have cars drive into a parking lot and simply hold a service. I saw a fun meme, and you know what? Our gallows humor is just way up there during this time. So at least as Americans, we can laugh about these things. We need to. But it is a picture and it has characters from the movie The Shawshank Redemption. And basically one character is looking at the other and says, "Hey, what are you in for?" And the other character responds, "I attended church in the parking lot," as the response. And so bravo to whoever made that one. If individuals can drive their cars through a drive-through or park in a parking lot, individuals sitting at a local church listening to their pastor in a sealed vehicle is simply not a threat to public health. And so in that sense, yes, that was a violation of the First Amendment. And a federal judge has actually come out to make that statement. And so again, our government's violating religious liberty by telling churches they can't meet. No, in the sense that they're generally applicable orders. However, in cases like drive-in services and also an order where individuals could not sing on a video, a live stream video that happened out in California, I would say that those are violations. So here's kind of the theme from this video, and that is, Pastor, if your alarm bell, your government overreach alarm bell is going off, I would say don't turn that off. It is important to stay vigilant during this time, but let's keep these distinctions in mind as we move forward. So I think vigilance and not necessarily defiance is the order of the day, and then we'll see how this proceeds as things happen.
Thank you, Josh. That's very helpful, and I really just look forward to continuing this conversation with you as we look more and more into this. But Josh, I really want to reiterate to the pastors listening on this, I just really appreciate that this really is coming from a heart as a pastor who loves the church, but also as someone that wants to see the government glorify God and come to the knowledge of Him. And I really appreciate the balance that you're bringing to this, and I look forward to continuing the discussion with you. So I encourage everyone to watch this full series with us. Thanks for joining today, Josh.
Thanks, Greg.